We had to go back. 1/5 of our devotee population is left. Huh? We're okay? He's a controller. But he's a good controller. He does it for Krishna. Well, who has the MC brain behind this one? I see some 3x5 cards. Is the idea that I read one, then give him one, and is that the idea? That's the idea. Okay. Okay. Well, for those that are driving in a car or in an airplane or whatever their program is, they'll just have to watch the video. And I know some devotees, they're remote, but they're able to see live. You figured it out?
It worked out. I don't know how it works out next time.
You're not the best controller, huh? Okay. Well, I missed a number of classes, including our esteemed presenter here, Radhika Ramana, because of service that was not expected, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to YouTube and catch what I missed. And vice versa. Anyway, we both had jet lag. What to do? Limitations of having a material body. Okay. Okay, I'm going to call upon Nandimukhi to answer this first question. Give this young lady a microphone. We've got an extra one. This is a Canto 5 topic. So the question is, Srimad Bhagavatam talks about structure of the universe and flat earth. But modern scientists tell us something completely different, how to understand both. Would you like to answer that question?
Sure, thank you. Maybe I could just offer perspective. Bhagavatam talks about the structure of the universe, and the flat thing, the term is Bhumandala, it's not Earth. I would say that we be cautious when trying to map one thing to another. One is from the Bhagavatam description, and other is what we observed by looking out into space through telescopes and naked eyes. What is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, as we understood, is not observable with current observation technology because of this simple fact in astronomy that when we look out into space, we're actually looking back into time. So what if you want to see out in outer space is not actually a structure that remains unchanged and stationary over time. So it's not really that we can map one concept in the observation astronomy to another idea that is presented in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And another thing I would like to emphasize is that we also better be cautious to say the observation, what is observed by the naked eyes through telescopes, is unreal. It's also real. It also real has its in its own sense. And Bhagavatam is another realm of reality that that are presented by Shukadeva Goswami through his vision. So in this regard, and one thing we need to know that Bhagavatam itself is not an astronomy test. And what I heard from other devotees is that, for example, Surya Siddhanta, they were also talking about observation astronomy, and in that context, the Earth is a planet, Sun is a planet, and it's just matched with what we can observe with the naked eyes.
Yeah. I'll add two things to that answer. It's not a different answer, it's just an additional answer. The structure of the universe to build the temple of Vedic planetarium, Sataputta Prabhu was given an assignment to design the temple of Vedic planetarium, which sent him on a trajectory of mysteries of the sacred universe, a publication. And one of the pictures that Sataputta has presented, including in video dimension, taking the structure of the universe and projecting it on a two-dimensional surface, or he calls it a planisphere. So from the perspective of the sun, then looking down and then projecting down on a flat surface equals what's being called here the flat earth structure of the universe, or at least the earth planet, flat earth. Similarly, this is part two, similarly, from some research that I did, there was a gentleman, Dr. Hans Jenny, in the 1960s or so. He did some work with sound and took two-dimensional pictures of what sound does to matter. So one of the things that he did was he made an image of what the sound Om does in a two-dimensional picture, without all the details of the research that he did. And what he found again and again and again was a Sri Yantra. The Sri Yantra is a two-dimensional depiction of Vaikuntha, which isn't two-dimensional. But there's a two-dimensional picture of Vaikuntha through sound, which corresponds very, in my estimation at least, corresponds very much to Sataputta's conception of the flat earth being a two-dimensional depiction of planisphere, a two-dimensional picture of something that's not two-dimensional, which is similar to what Nandi Mukhi said. It's not designed to match, correspond with one-to-one with, or it's any other way with astronomy. It's a depiction of the structure of our universe. And I'll say one other thing. There's a devotee who was given sole responsibility for overseeing the Temple of Vedic Planetarium. His name is Antardweep Prabhu from Australia, and somehow he drew the long straw instead of the short straw, and he got being in charge of designing the Temple of Vedic Planetarium. Some time passed, and he rejected anything other than, his view, or that's probably not fair, other than what he considered to be a literal presentation. And therefore, Sadaputa's presentation, like the planisphere, bounced because it's not a literal, it's a figurative presentation. Some time passed. A number of people, I don't know how many, a number of people were making comments to the Mayapur development team saying, give this guy the back door. And so now there's another group of people, this is my very probably skewed understanding, that position that he had has now been replaced by a group of devotees based in based in Gainesville. The Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies. And it's not one person, it's a team of people with, all kinds of PhD degrees and all kinds of things, astrophysics and stuff. So combinedly, get a bunch of smart people in a room and get them to get consensus. Good luck, right? But that's what they're working on. And they're presenting seminars on different topics. And they've got some time, not unlimited time frame, but they have time to work on what the model is going to look like, the Temple of Vedic Planetarium model. That's at least my understanding of what our founder Acharya wants, is that there's a way to depict the 5th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. Specifically, the assignment to Sadaputta was 5th canto, because there are other places like Surya Siddhanta that he made reference to, Sadaputta in his writings, but other sources that speak about the structure of the universe, but primarily 5th canto. And that's a tall assignment. You need to be really tall to take a tall assignment, and he did his best. Brilliant. And now they're working with that as a structure, and then taking other ideas that are also drawing, my understanding is they're drawing from modern science, modern cosmology, and what this question is asking. And how do the two compare, or they don't compare? Because persons that don't know anything about 5th canto are going to come and take a look and take pot shots at what they see. Count on it. You say something and there's going to be people that say, oh yeah. Don't say anything and people won't say it. Academia's got swords and knives and people sharpening them, right?
Definitely.
Okay, here's question number 2.
May I add one little thing?
Sure, absolutely. You got a microphone too.
Just one of the Hare Krishna.
It's a trick.
Hare Krishna.
You got the mantra. There we go.
I just wanted to add that group, which Maharaj is referring to, the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies. Shri Radha Damodar ki jai. That group has produced a small book or booklet. I think it's called Bhugola, and it specifically addresses the question of a flat earth.
Yeah.
And the argument of that book or booklet is that the Bhagavatam does not adhere to a flat earth theory in the way that we think of flat earthists today. that, if you go far enough, you fall off the edge. That the Bhagavatam, in fact, adheres to the idea of a globe, but with caveats along the lines of what Nandi Mukhi Mataji said, that there's no correspondence, one-to-one correspondence between Bhagavatam and modern astronomy. So for anyone who's interested, there's literature out there produced by the BI.
Whoa. Survey question. What percentage of devotees actually get self-realization and God realization in one lifetime? And what was their understanding in your 5 decades? Let me hook myself up to a self-realization meter. And the sun hasn't fully risen yet. I can say that. But the sun is still rising. I can say that. Using our metaphor from the Bhagavatam. There's a price, or there's a characteristic, and there are different ways of identifying what the characteristic was. Undivided devotion, exclusive devotion, no squeaky clean, no other desire than one desire. There's one way to say. Or lolyam, according to Rupa Goswami, intense desire to achieve, greed to achieve. The sun hasn't risen yet. So, but it's progressive. It's certainly something that different than when it was just the sun is on the tip of the sun is on the horizon. It's progressive, proportionate to one's full submission unto Krishna. So how many? You can do your own survey. I don't know how many. I've never been, out of all my years as answering questions, I've never been asked this one. Congratulations, whoever came up with that. Here we
go. Preceptor avoids for 12 plus years, no response. 18.
Strange question.
May be fault of student. What should the student do to rectify? He says his preceptor also does same. 18. It's not clear. Is it preceptor responsibility to arrange a match for marriage? Or isn't? If he refuses, what is something a student can do?
Make your best effort.
I see and hear still, Maharaj, you are arranging match for your disciples.
I don't do that. Thank you, but no thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I think, okay, so that's question 1. Okay. The only thing I don't understand the question fully. Yeah. I think the question is something along the lines of, is it the responsibility of a preceptor or teacher or guru to help a student in various ways, including marriage, it seems, but there are other things also mentioned of rectification. Although I don't fully understand the question, the best I can do is to say that I think it's very important that we accept preceptors. I think the word is very nice, that we accept preceptors, different preceptors for different aspects of our life. Srila Prabhupada translated guru as spiritual master. And that means that when it comes to matters of spiritual life, that person is our master. At the same time, there's also an ashram guru. We can accept someone who can help us in our particular stage in life. Maybe a senior grihastha can help younger grihasthas navigate how to have relationship between husband and wife, how to raise children. When it comes to our professions, it's very useful to have preceptors who have gone ahead before us. In some ways, we might call it a varna guru, someone who understands the type of work we do and can guide us along those lines. So I think what becomes challenging is when we put all our eggs in one basket and we say that this person is going to be everything to me. This is true about any relationship. One of, I think, the big challenges of our contemporary nuclear family, husband, wife, and kids, is that there's so much pressure on husband and on wife to be everything to their partner, friend and romantic partner and philosophical dialogue partner and fellow spiritual path and support in times of distress.
Medical doctor.
Medical doctor. Yeah, nurse, everything, right? And it's very difficult. Only Krishna can handle so much weight in a relationship. All of us, we need many different places to place our faith, our love, our affection, and we can only give so much. And so, same thing goes with preceptors. If a teacher or preceptor thinks, like for example in the classroom, if a student comes to me for guidance on the subject, it's my duty to help them. If they come to me for relationship advice, then I typically send them to someone else who is better suited for that kind of thing, right? Or if they're in a psychological distress, then I send them to someone who has expertise in that area. It would be both arrogant and foolish for me to think that I can be everything for my students. Similarly, it would be foolish for the students to think that their preceptor can be everything on all matters. Rather, we have to find good advice. This is why Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that Shiksha gurus are many. Diksha guru is one, Shiksha gurus are many. So that we have multiple places for Shiksha based on expertise.
I want to ask a question in response to your answer to that question. Because somebody asked me the following question yesterday, and I probably didn't get it exactly the way that they articulated it, but similar. The nomenclature in ISKCON, guru means Diksha guru. Now it's starting to become a little bit broader. Guru means these two categories, Shiksha guru and Diksha guru, and Shiksha gurus may be many, Diksha guru is one. That there's common, parlance on that topic. Now, which takes precedence? On the one hand, Shiksha guru, Diksha guru are in the same plane. On the other hand, it seems that there's between Diksha and Shiksha, Shiksha is more important because even when it's Diksha guru, also giving Shiksha, that's the Shiksha part of the guru-disciple relationship that's more important than the Diksha aspect of their relationship. So is it okay, is it scripturally, within the boundaries of things that we could say that's correct, to say Shiksha is more important. And because Shiksha is more important, then the inference is Shiksha Guru is more important. I mean, that's basically the way the question was asked. And you know, if the person was sitting in the room, they're not here right now, they might want to edit the language of the question, but that's how I understood the question. We had a short discussion. They want to have more discussion on that question. So I'm putting you in the hot seat.
Yes. So Srila Jiva Goswami says that shiksha is the very heart of diksha. And so certainly I think shiksha is the more important piece of the two. Diksha is the formality. It's not a meaningless formality. It's a very meaningful formality. But nevertheless, it's the formalization of shiksha. Now, it can happen that the Diksha guru is not involved in shiksha, and shiksha is received from elsewhere. But that's a very unusual circumstance. So, for example, when Madhvacharya received Diksha from the Shankara Sampradaya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received Sannyas Diksha from the Shankara Sampradaya. And in both cases, the shiksha element was clearly not the important one. It was a matter of connecting formally to a recognized disciplic line. And that was what was important, because the shiksha in that particular line was not suitable, especially in the case of Madhvacharya. Keshav Bharati, of course, was transformed and Vaishnava very much so. But nevertheless, the line itself was not important for shiksha, it was important for diksha. So it can happen that the two are separated. But in general, that's an unusual circumstance. In general, the reason we take diksha is for the flow of shiksha. And because shiksha is the heart of diksha, I suppose one could say it's more important of the two, but I prefer to think of it not in a measure of weight, of importance, but rather of being nested within. If something is the heart of something else, it's actually what gives it value. Shiksha gives value to diksha.
You said something towards the very beginning that within diksha, shiksha is the essence of diksha, or something to that effect. Could you repeat? And what's the reference for that?
Yeah, Srila Jiva Goswami says that shiksha is the heart of diksha.
Where is this spoken?
This is in the Sandarbhas.
Which one? I'd like to look it up because it's important. It's important. I think it's important for ISKCON going forward in time to nail this one, or at least mirror, please. So you don't have to recite where, but later you let me know?
Yes, I can send the
It's
reference.
important. I think it's important. You have your hand up. You want to add something? Yeah, give that man the microphone.
Hare Krishna. Just wanted to add very quickly, Maharaj, like the second limb of Bhakti by Sri Rupa Goswami says, Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam. And in the commentary, Sri Jiva Goswami says, receive Diksha and then continue on receiving Shiksha to receiving Diksha.
Say it again.
The second limb of Bhakti, among the 64 limbs of Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti,
Yeah.
is Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam. And that meaning, as I understand, receive Diksha from the Guru and then continue on receiving the Shiksha. So at least in that limb, the understanding is it's from the same person.
Similar to what he said.
Right.
Which is from Diksha, the essence is Shiksha. From Diksha, Adi, then follows Shiksha.
Correct. I was just providing a reference. And
that's a nice one.
Sri Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu.
That's a nice one. And there's probably commentary on that one from Bhakti
Sri Jiva Goswami, yes.
Jiva Goswami's commentary.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay.
I was thinking I could find the...
Do it later. Because I need your focus. You have the next question already? Not yet?
There's multiple sets.
Oh, yeah, okay. These are ones that are already answered. They're going to go over here. Okay. Okay. Those are answered already. Those are the answered already. Here's the unanswered one. Here's nice red letters, if you want. Okay, this is something that I spoke about, and it's going to be short. When it says Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavat Sevaya, does that literally mean only Srimad Bhagavatam or other scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Chaitanya Charitamrita, etc.? So, Bhagavan, in relation to Bhagavan, is Bhagavata. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but he's nodding his head. So, Bhagavata is in relation to Bhagavan. So there's the book that's in relation to Bhagavan, that's the Bhagavat Purana. And then there's the person, Bhagavat, in relation to Bhagavan. The book and the person. So, in relation to Bhagavan does not mean only Srimad Bhagavatam, it means in relation to Bhagavan. So these other titles are Bhagavan. Krishna, Bhagavad Gita. Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's Krishna, he's Bhagavan. Lord Ramachandra is Bhagavan. So they're also, not just only Bhagavat Sevaya. There's only Srimad Bhagavatam. The bell doesn't ring if you read those other things. It only rings if you read Srimad Bhagavatam. That's not the right understanding. It's broader. It's in principle.
I think this may be for you.
Oh,
Should I take a different one?
sure. Here's one for you. Number of demigods. Go ahead. Number of demigods.
Okay.
How many demigods are there?
So these both questions have to do with demigods. We hear different numbers about the number of demigods, like 3 crores or 33 crores. What is the correct number?
Oh,
We know that the demigods live in Svargaloka. Where do the demons live?
Demaloka.
There's a nice passage in regard to the first question, the number. This very question is asked in the Upanishads.
Really?
I'm forgetting whether it's Brihad Aranyaka or Chandogya. I think it's Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. This very question is asked, what is the number of devas? What is the number of gods? And the sage Yajnavalkya replies that there are, I think he starts with 330 million. And then the person who asks the question says, but how many gods are there really? And he says, well, really 33 million. And then he says, how many gods are there really? And he says, well, I think 33,000. And he says, how many are there really? And he says, 33. And then it keeps going down to 3, and then to 1. And because the Upanishads are the Upanishads, they don't specify names, but that 1 is identified
That's clear.
as Brahman, the absolute truth. So it's a good question. And the answer, like so many answers in Vedic literature, is usually all of the above. All the numbers are correct. Because, of course, God is many and God is one. He has unlimited forms and expansions and potencies and living entities and empowered living entities, and He's just one at the same time. And this is described elaborately in Vaishnava literature.
Boy, I'm glad you got that question, not me. Okay. Bhagavad Gita empowers us with amazing wisdom, morals, how we live our life. But outside people in the world are crazy. They may not be living an ethical life, especially as a devotee. When we are cheated by those people, dealing with them may be a very painful process. How to conduct ourselves when we, as a devotee, are facing this type of situation. Why do you think this is meant for me?
No, it was this one.
Oh,
The red one.
the red one. Okay. Okay. But I'll respond and then I'll do the red one later. Okay. Tang satiksha swabharata. And how do you have that perseverance and tolerance? Take full shelter of Krishna. Supposing you don't yet have full shelter of Krishna, suffer or be tossed around by the waves of time and tide and circumstance and hold on and, tolerate with as best you can, but tolerate where you're not disturbed. Dhiras tatra namuyati. One of the memorable classes I heard Srila Prabhupada speak was in discussing Bhagavad Gita. He gave a very nice definition of dhira. It's classic. Dhira means undisturbed in Prabhupada's explanation. When there's no cause for disturbance and you remain undisturbed, that's not something wonderful. When there's cause for disturbance and you remain undisturbed, that's something wonderful. So how do you remain undisturbed when there's cause for disturbance? You have to have shelter. And not just cosmetic, check the box kind of shelter, but shelter. And then when there's shelter, then you remain undisturbed. And then another classic example, a little boy is walking down the street holding his father's hand. Here comes a big dog, woof, woof, woof. The little boy is holding his father's hand and he's not disturbed because he knows my father will protect me. So he remains undisturbed. Now, most kids are going to be disturbed. Or if they're feeling empowered because their father will protect them, they'll taunt the dog. But an undisturbed person doesn't do that. Doesn't get provoked or provoke. Just carries on because when one is protected, there's nothing to worry. Like Prahlad. Because that's the platform that Prahlad came to teach, according to Prahlad. He came to teach the way of pure devotional service. And in teaching the way of pure devotional service is, even when there's cause for disturbance, you remain undisturbed because the Lord is my protector. Plenty of opportunity to get disturbed. Undisturbed. Oh. That was the good list. So you want to take one off the top? Take your pick. I'll take the red one. Okay.
Okay. What does it mean to be a qualified disciple?
Ooh.
How can one work towards the same? Would you like to answer this?
That's a nice question. Who asked that question? Okay. Go for it.
Prabhupada says over and over again that the qualification of the disciple is to follow the instruction of the spiritual master. Now, this is something that I've thought about a little bit in my
A little bit.
in my own life, wondering, what do you do when, as a disciple, you have the instruction of the spiritual master, very clear, and you have a desire to follow that instruction, and at the same time, you are unable to do so, or unable to do so fully. Does that make one a failure? And I was reflecting on the example of Srila Prabhupada, which is, of course, a wonderful example for all of us. And he received an instruction from his spiritual master in his youth or middle age, quite early, and particularly to preach in English, to preach in the West. And it was many, many years before Srila Prabhupada was able to actually board the Jaladuta to cross to the West. Even it was many years before he was able to start publishing Back to Godhead magazine in English, translating Srimad Bhagavatam in English. So but Prabhupada says one place that not even one day did I forget the instruction of my spiritual master. And I was always thinking, how can I fulfill this instruction? And I think that's where the key lies. If the disciple were expected to be immediately following the instructions to the fullest capacity, then where's the reason for growth? Where's the reason to be a disciple even? We call it initiation for a reason. It's a beginning on the trajectory. I think the difference happens when we, on the one hand, reject the instruction. This instruction is not good or not good for me or not doable. Or we become complacent about the instruction. This is, I think I'm doing good enough. Right? That's all I should be expected. I think that's where we're in very difficult territory, very dangerous territory. But if the desire is very strong, I have the instruction of my spiritual master, and this is what he expects of me. Right? Srila Prabhupada has given us his instructions so very clearly, and such a vast array of instructions, and such a high standard for us, an extremely high standard, that practically no other guru of his generation in the West was demanding of his disciples. Right? Prabhupada really, really pushed hard and expected a lot. And yet, those instructions are so clear, but I'm not there yet, but I'm going to keep trying. And I'm at the determination, the fire, the intensity, the greed, the desire to keep improving is real. And I want to keep making that progress. I want to move in that direction. I can chart that movement. I can watch that progress. And I can continue getting guidance to make sure that I'm moving in that direction. I think for me, that's what it has meant to follow the instructions of the spiritual master, to be a good disciple, right? Not that I am perfect, because that would be hypocritical, or that I am a complete failure, because that would be counterproductive. I would end up then losing any desire to progress. But rather, that happy middle space, which is to say, I'm not yet there, but I have the determination to keep improving. And when I get further guidance or advice about how I can improve, I'm willing to take that on. So those are some few thoughts from myself.
Well done. Confucius. So if you have something you want to add to the end of this, you please do so. In the first class, you mentioned about the teachings of Confucius. Someone practicing sincerely his preachings or follows other similar philosophers and comes to a stage of goodness, can such a practice be considered as a step in bhakti if the practitioner becomes a devotee later in this life or next? Well, what's the definition of bhakti? And it doesn't fit the definition of bhakti that I'm familiar with. It's not the sadhana stage of bhakti. It may be preliminary to the sadhana stage of bhakti, but bhakti begins, sadhana bhakti begins when there's a seed, bhakti lata bija, that's given from one who's carrying bhakti to one who doesn't yet have that seed of bhakti. So it's like making wet wood into dry wood, kind of thing. Bringing one closer to the position where they can ignite when receiving the seed of bhakti, or the fire of bhakti, or the principle of bhakti. But then there may be persons that are followers of this philosophy, that philosophy, and more than just followers of philosophy, but come to a very elevated standard, because the teaching of Confucius is very elevated standard, culturally speaking. And very similar, because the comment that I made was, you can comment if you like, the comment that I made was, I find the teachings, the wisdom literature of China very closely resembles the wisdom of the Vedas, with one important difference. There's no God in the center. It's not get there on the strength of the mercy of God. It's get there on the strength of something else. So it's not bhakti, because the principle of bhakti is absent. And to get to the standard, it's, directionally it's nice. And if people could live according to those teachings, there'd be better people, and from the modes of goodness perspective. But shrama eva hi kevalam. Without that one, then it stays on the material platform. You want to comment? She thinks a lot about how wisdom that is there in Chinese regularly. I'm speaking something and she'll send me, this sage said this and that sage said that, and how that's such a correlation between the two. You want to comment or no?
I think I would prefer to go to your lecture and see what is the quote you made before I made a comment, because I don't see the context clearly at present.
You don't see what?
So what is mentioned in this question, that what you were referring to in the first lecture?
Yeah.
Because I didn't see that lecture, so I think I need to
That's okay.
go back to
just what's the topic is. I mean, I wasn't elaborate at all. I just made the comment that the age of Kali is what it is, and the first class was the age of Kali is Krishna comes in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Bhagavatam teaches us many, many things. But those many, many things, the essence is resting on Krishna. And there are cultures of the world, and I gave this example. Like, for example, the teachings of Confucius, from my observation, it's very, very rare that someone can live on that platform. The particular point, philosophical point, was made by Rupa Goswami from Bhakti Sandarbha. And in Bhakti Sandarbha, Rupa Goswami was saying that the power of bhakti surpasses the power of gyan, because the power of bhakti is already in force even when unwanted things are not completely removed, but it was the second class, nashta prayeshu abhadreshu. Prayeshu. The full force of bhakti is experienced even before abhadras are taken away. And then Jiva Goswami comments in Bhakti Sandarbha that for the process of gyan, for the full force of the process of gyan, then all anarthas have to be removed in order for the force of gyan to be effective. Thus, the power of bhakti is greater. That was the reference, and I said, this is where I made this comment about Confucius. That was the context. So if it doesn't ring any bells, that's okay.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Yes, just to elaborate what you've said, in terms of Confucianism, is more like the emphasis is, for example, they said, 修身齐家治国平天下. It's a sequence like more focused on 修身 means self-cultivation, and 齐家 means regulate your family business. For example, your relationship. How do you deal with elderly? How do you deal with your spouse? 治国 means how do you regulate a country or take up your responsibility at job, for example. And 平天下, and then you can talk about how you live in this world. And I would say, like, traditional Chinese culture is really has a focus on, like, they encourage people to stay determined, stay equilibriumly situated in whatever disturbances or happiness or distress, to be equally situated. And however, but they don't tell you what is that goal you should focus on. They encourage you to focus on a high goal and be less focused on material acquisition, but they don't know what is that goal. And I think, so most of the case is basically very helpful for you to navigate in this world. But in terms of the transcendental topic, it's certainly, it cannot be compared to the Vedic wisdom.
Okay. I've noticed that in the West, other than public schools, there's other models, and this model, that model. And one of the ones that's become a little more on the popular side is Confucius schools for people who are atheistic, but they want their children to learn values, proper conduct, respect, and, values that guide their life, but without God. And they like it. I mean, it's become somewhat popular, at least. Okay. Is this a good system, just reading out stuff, or should we call on people? Anyone? Raghunandan, you want to comment? Do you like this system? People write it down and we read it? I'm asking you personally. You're comfortable with it? Okay. We'll keep going. Take one from the deck, one that you like.
Okay, this one has 4 on it, so I'll take one. How can our heart align Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra? making our heart aligned with them, Guru Mukha Padmavakya Chitete Korya Aikya, creating that. Prabhupada uses the word, I think I mentioned this in my talk, in 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in his commentary on the verse Api Chet Suduracharo. Prabhupada says that that Krishna makes the devotee wholesome. That in the beginning of our practice, we may be, a devotee has basically spiritual life and material life. And the two mostly run in parallel, but every once in a while they may diverge in different directions. And at that point, then Krishna helps to make the devotee wholesome again. He uses this word, which I like very much. And he's referring to the next verse when Krishna says, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma. That person quickly becomes righteous again. And Prabhupada is essentially in the previous verse explaining dharmatma, righteousness, as a condition of being wholesome. And wholesome means that everything in our life becomes connected to that center point. Initially, in our Krishna consciousness, it's a balancing act. How do I balance my Krishna consciousness with my career? How do I balance my family obligations with my Krishna consciousness? How do I balance whatever it is in my life? Eventually, we start to see that it's not balancing at all, that everything we're doing, our career, our family life, whether it's easy or a struggle, is part of our Krishna consciousness. And this is what Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita as well, right? He's trying to point out to him that you're seeing your spiritual pursuit as somehow different from your worldly pursuit. In reality, both spiritual and material are unified in service to me, in devotional service. If you do this for me, then it's all one activity. So we can think of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra as this is sometimes in academia, this is called a hermeneutical circle. What that means is it's a circle of understanding. Each one is feeding the other and being supported by the other. Each one is illuminating the other. That's the better word than feeding. Each one is illuminating the other and being illuminated by it. So Shastra gives us the very foundation of our Krishna consciousness, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. The meaning of Shastra is illuminated by the words of the spiritual master. Right? So Srila Prabhupada's purports are giving us the guidance on how we understand Srimad Bhagavatam. And then those purports, that understanding, we are able to apply because we are in the association of sadhu. And we have seen the example of sadhus that come before us. Those sadhus who come before us help us to better understand Shastra again. And Shastra tells us who constitutes a sadhu so that we don't get misled. In other words, each one illuminates the other and supports the other. And so we want to constantly be moving around in this circle. This is, there are vicious circles that are like rat races, and sometimes in logic also a vicious circle is one that assumes what you're trying to prove. This is called a virtuous circle. This is a good circle where each item is supporting the other. So we have to constantly be taking advantage of all three. And when we take advantage of all three on a continuous basis, we can no longer even distinguish this or that. Is it this? Is it that? It all becomes part of who we are, our identity. Just like if you have three things, like three on a merry-go-round, you have multiple chairs or seats on the horse rides that go around and around. And if they go around fast enough, then they become a single circle, right? And you're part of that circle. It's no longer separate individual spaces. So in this way, when we take Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and we constantly take advantage, to do service to each one of those three by the process of hearing and chanting and service and so on, then eventually they become one in our hearts, right? They become aikya. They become combined as a single entity. And no longer is life all about a balancing act, or the Guru says this, but Shastra says this, but previous acharyas say this, and this is all. So how do we reconcile the different confusions? That's there. On some intellectual level, that's there. That may be there in the mind, but in the heart, it has to be one, right? And that becomes one when we take shelter of all three on a regular basis.
That answer should be transcribed. It was brilliant. Fantastic. Well done. Okay. When praying to Krishna, this is kind of like your topic. When praying to Krishna, it was said, maybe you should answer this one. Because it sounds like something that you said. Okay. Okay, question number 2. What should be the right mood when reciting Srimad Bhagavatam? There's many right modes when reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. But the essence of the right mood is one way of saying it's a mode of service. How do we do anything? How do we live our lives? It's a service. And in service, we're giving and we're receiving. When reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, we're receiving the message that Srimad Bhagavatam has simply by the act of reciting it. Purification is going on. The mood is, let my existence become purified because I need it. And as my existence becomes purified, then let me give it as part of a service that I do for having received it. It's just, the mood of service through the medium of hearing, chanting, remembering, etc., the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. Living the message of the Bhagavatam as a medium of service unto Krishna. Want to try that one?
When praying to Krishna, it was said that the ultimate stage to get to is having full faith in Krishna that he will take care of everything. And with that faith, we don't request anything of him. Is there a difference in feeling like this versus feeling helpless and knowing everything is in Krishna's hands? So there is no need to ask him for anything.
Is that an understanding that they've misunderstood, or is that a correct understanding of what you were expressing in your seminar?
So in the seminar, what I was leading or building up towards was the idea that if we ask what we need from Krishna in an honest way, and we go to Krishna, akamo, sarvakamo, mokshakama. So even if we have material desires or desire for liberation, we come to Krishna with that. Gradually, Krishna purifies us of that desire, so that eventually then we don't see the need to ask for any material things from him anymore. And with that faith, we don't request anything, meaning anything material from Krishna. Now, the question is there a difference in feeling like this, I don't need to ask, versus being helpless? And I presume in being helpless means being willing to ask for help, right? Krishna, I have no refuge but you. And I think this is a very subtle distinction, but we do find this distinction depending on the mood of the devotee, the particular rasa or relationship they have with Krishna. So Prahlad Maharaj, for example, his mood is not in terms of asking Krishna for anything for himself, even asking for help, right? He's completely confident in Krishna's protection and willing to take whatever Krishna sends his way. On the other hand, if you look at the Brajavasis, when they are being attacked by the rains sent by Indra, they come to Krishna seeking shelter from him. In both cases, these are not material desires. It's the natural expression of the devotee's complete dependence on Krishna. This is described in the 6 limbs of Sharanagati, of surrender. The firm conviction that Krishna will protect me, rakshishyatiti vishvasaha, and the conviction that Krishna is my sole maintainer, goptartve varanam tatha. This is a characteristic of all surrendered devotees, but they express that surrender in different ways. Sometimes in the mood of Shanta or sometimes in the mood of Dasya, Krishna will do whatever he wants with me. And it's okay. It's up to him. And other times, they will go asking him, begging him for help. As the Brajvasis do, the cowherd boys and girls, they come to Krishna and they say, please help Krishna. You are our only shelter. Please help us. And yet other times, in another mood, a devotee may demand Krishna's help. May say, Krishna, you have to help me. You have to do this because this is my rightful claim from you. Right? Muktipade sadaya bhak. But in each of those instances, the devotee's sense is not one of selfishness. It's not one of, well, Krishna, I've done so much for you, and this is what I offered to you yesterday, and this is what I expect from you today. It's not a business relationship. In each one of those instances, it's simply a way of pleasing Krishna by expressing one's dependence upon him. Sometimes the gopis will demand things of Krishna. Sometimes they will beg things of Krishna, and sometimes they'll just rely on Krishna's, the Brajavasis will just rely on Krishna's help. In each of those cases, that expression of dependence upon the Lord, however it is manifest, is pleasing to the Lord. And that's why the devotee expresses it. Just like when a child expresses various forms of dependence, a small child, upon the parents, then it becomes very pleasing for the parents. I remember once observing my cousin who's much younger than me, and many, many years ago. He's a little toddler, and being chased by his mother, this is in India, and chased around the table, one of these classic scenes of mother trying to catch the child because she was upset. And what was really funny is as he's running around and around trying to get away from her, and she's trying to catch him, at some point he does something very odd, which is to turn around and run straight into her arms. Because at some point he realized, I have no other shelter. Where else am I going to go for help? And right away, she melted. Right? Right away, it was over. The anger was gone completely. And that's what the devotee does to Krishna. Right? By seeking shelter of Krishna, it's not a selfish act. It's one that expresses the devotee's deepest dependence on the Lord, and that dependence completely melts the Lord.
Charming. Okay, question number 3 from this nice series. I've already addressed number 3, so I'll read number 3 and repeat, and then go to number 4. How to remain steady in bhakti during difficult situations. How to remain, this is this dhira, when there's shelter. If there isn't shelter, it's cosmetic at best. Now you see it, now you don't. Now I'm feeling protected, now I'm not feeling protected. Or now I'm remaining steady when difficult times, now I'm losing it. So when there's shelter, the sense of shelter means protection. Just like, the theme here of this whole weekend. What Srimad Bhagavatam is for persons in the age of Kali is our refuge or shelter. It doesn't mean that times are going to not be difficult if you take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Times may get difficult. I'll just share this. I've had 3 discussions during the course of this time here, where it caused me to miss some of the classes too. From my experience of reading Srimad Bhagavatam and taking shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam to the extent that I have, and Bhagavatam is no longer something that's out there, it's something that's in here. And when difficulty comes, there's a place of shelter. There's light even when the light goes out, or when there's darkness, or turbulent, or turmoil, or tribulation, using some of Prabhupada's words, tribulation. It's just, it's part of what's the world that we live in. But when you're carrying Srimad Bhagavatam within, then it's okay. You can start to see the tribulation in terms of, it's okay, Krishna's providing me an opportunity to fill in the blank, to take deeper shelter of him, and not rely upon the circumstance as now it's okay. It's not okay, but it doesn't make it not okay because it's not okay, because Krishna is within in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, the light of the Bhagavat. And when the steadiness, this is back to the question, how to remain steady in bhakti during difficult situations. Practice bhakti nicely, sincerely, for these 2 considerations, with respect for an extended period of time or daily, nityam bhagavata sevaya, and then the disturbances that are really within, not without, they're cleansed, and you have a place of shelter in the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, and it stays with you. Until then, it's turbulent. Difficult times are difficult. Taxing circumstances are taxing. Okay, 4 is similar. Practicing acceptance is a challenge. How can one navigate from misery to mercy of the Lord? It's the same. Follow the bhakti process. Thank you very much. So it's 3 minutes before 12, before 1 o'clock, and we're supposed to end at 1 o'clock. So those persons, now there's some closing remarks. Those persons that aren't with us, our misfortune, and they'll have the opportunity to review if they want to review, but it's recorded, and people that are remote, same, it's also recorded. For those of you that are still here, thank you for being here, because what's a retreat without attendees of the retreat? I hope the prasadam was nice. That was a long applause. I made 2 visits to the kitchen, and there was a lot of people in the kitchen. A lot of people. And they looked happy. And those that are applauding, they like the happiness of what they produced. But, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes on. What to speak of, so I'll speak of it. The sacrifice of the Gitanagari residents that maintain this place. And we just parachute in and have a nice time and fly off to go somewhere, and they're left behind to maintain. So they've been fantastic hosts, and they've done a fantastic job. I mentioned this the other day for developing this project, because this was an at-risk project for some period of time, and it's developing and developing and developing, and there's a vision further and further, and so our gratitude goes to the Gitanagari folks, just worshiping Radha Damodar very nicely and maintaining everything the way that they're doing. It's just fantastic. And all of you, I mean, when I asked Radhika Ramana to come, it wasn't much of a delay. It was, I'm coming. And it wasn't easy for him to get here because of circumstances, but he kept his word, and he's here with us, and I'm very grateful to Radhika Ramana and the other speakers. Parma Kruna came all the way from Portland, and looks like he's left already. And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the kirtan people and everything. So I'm looking forward to our next event, Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Krishna's Leela in Vrindavan. Did you hear Garuda? Okay. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Okay. Safe travels going back to where you came from. Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki, Gaur Premanandi. Now I have some Mahaprashadam from ISKCON Naperville. It's not the same as Radha Damodar Prashadam, but it's...